was quite an introduction. Thank you. I almost didn't recognize myself. Hi. Congratulations first to all of the winners that we're going to be celebrating today. It's an honor to be a part of the same program with you. And thank you to the Gold Country Writers, not only for the last 10 years of my relationship with this group, but for this honor of coming and speaking with you. So thank you. Glad to be here. All right. My goal today is to leave you with a call to action to write your stories down, to unleash that inner storyteller. Sprinkled throughout this are several, what I hope are inspirational quotes, which you have a copy of, all of them and more in your program today. And we're going to start with one by one of my favorite of all time quotes by Muriel Rukeyser. The universe is made up of stories, not of atoms. And I firmly believe that. Once upon a time, long ago, in a faraway land, two dear friends and I set out to hike through the heart of the Sierra Nevada, the Range of Light, on the 200-mile John Muir Trail. It was a grand adventure, a huge challenge, and a joyous month immersed in the most beautiful place on earth. Afterwards, when I returned, changed and filled with awe, I wanted to share my experiences with everyone I cared about. I wanted to share the joy I felt, the beauty I witnessed, and my experiences of overcoming fears and obstacles to stand atop mountains and see forever. I wanted to share all my stories, so I ended up writing my adventure memoir, Force of Nature. What no one prepared me for was all the readers who have reached out to me in person or via email or my website to tell me that my story had inspired them. Some tell me their own stories of hiking when they were younger or with now gone spouses, lamenting that they can no longer hike in the mountains or carry a backpack. Others tell me that my story was the catalyst they needed in order to do what they've always only dreamed about, and now they've gotten a permit to hike in the Sierra backcountry. I was not prepared for the deeply personal responses of my readers. Writer Terry Pratchett tells us, people think that stories are shaped by people. In fact, it's the other way around. People are shaped by stories. Why do we write our stories? Why do we want to share our experiences with others? What's the value? I thought it was simply because I had a fun and exciting story to tell. But in the course of writing my story, remembering and reflecting on my experiences and feelings, I learned a lot about myself that I had not yet, even in my golden years, realized about myself. During the process of writing my book over the course of an entire decade, I discovered a new community of writers and other creatives. That community has enriched my life in ways I never expected, and I hope I have returned the favor. After publishing my memoir, I've met and gotten to know many wonderful and interesting people, hikers and readers, nature lovers and librarians, artists and book club members, both locally and across the country. Writing my stories literally changed my life in new and unexpected ways. Why should you write your stories? Because the world needs your stories. Author Philip Pullman tells us, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the things we need most in the world. Humans have been telling stories for tens of thousands of years, first around campfires and on the walls of caves. It began as oral tradition, but as soon as people invented a written language, they began to record their stories and pass them along. In fact, much of what we know about the history of humankind, we know because those stories outlasted those civilizations. Storytelling is part of our DNA. Humans are born storytellers. We almost can't help ourselves. We share every day. You'll never guess what happened to me today, we say at the dinner table with family or on the telephone to a friend. We watch TV shows, movies, and cat videos. We read books and short stories and posts on social media. We consume stories like we consume food. Stories connect us to one another. Stories entertain us and inform us. Stories evoke emotions and preserve our memories. Stories even reveal universal truths and our own personal inner truths. Author Madeleine L'Engle wrote, "Stories make us more alive, more human, more courageous, and more loving." Years ago, I tried to convince my mom and dad to record their family stories because they lived such interesting lives. They always said, no one's going to be interested, our lives were ordinary, and so they never wrote them down. But they weren't ordinary, at least not for people who didn't live through the same era. For example, my paternal grandma, as a young teenager, moved with her farming family from the Midwest to California, one Quaker village to another, in 1906. They arrived just days after the 1906 earthquake, and because of all the chaos, they had to ride horses from San Francisco to the Imperial Valley and their new farm. My grandma always described that as one of the greatest adventures of her lifetime, but she never wrote it down, and I can't remember the details. My mother was born into a wealthy, oil-rich family in the mid-20s, but when the Depression hit and her dad died, they lost everything. They had to move from a giant Victorian into a single room in a hotel with the bathroom down the hall, and my grandma cleaned all the hotel rooms and hand wrote the restaurant menus for room and board. They lived in that one room for a decade. But they never wrote it down. And I wish I remembered the details. I've forgotten more than I remember. Author Faye Moskowitz says, "For who will testify? Who will accurately describe our lives if we do not do it ourselves?" I'm here today to convince you to tell your life stories, your true stories, to tell them so well that others will read them with interest. One of the fastest growing segments of the publishing business is memoir and other forms of narrative nonfiction. Memoir, like all narrative nonfiction, utilizes all the powerful storytelling techniques that novelists have been using and experimenting with for centuries. Characterization, setting, vivid sensory details, dialogue, action words, a story arc with conflicts, literary devices like metaphor, flashback, irony, suspense, and so much more. Memoir are true stories with a capital T, but they are also stories full of love and excitement, adventure and discovery, fear and heroism. But because memoir are personal stories, they're also full of the author's feelings and reflections on lessons learned and wisdom gained through living life. Anna East Nin wrote, "We write to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospect." So why should you write your stories? First and foremost, because it's fun. But writing your stories fosters self-knowledge, personal growth, and a sense of self-empowerment. Writing your stories builds empathy and connection with others, often inspiring those who face similar challenges or ambitions. Writing your stories creates a lasting testament to a life well lived, perhaps even a family legacy that fosters intergenerational bonds. And finally, writing your stories allows you to contribute to something larger than yourself and promote social change by educating others and inspiring them to action. With that said, I'm going to read a little excerpt from my book. We've been hiking for about 25 days, and we've just done our longest, highest climb, and it's getting late, and it's getting dark, and we have to find a campsite. There aren't any official camping areas up this high, Cappy, my hiking partner, remembered from the guidebook. Let's just look for a flat spot, any flat spot. No sooner had those words been spoken than we came around a bend in the trail to find a nameless, shallow pond, just a dip in the rock floor, smaller than the average backyard swimming pool, and not nearly as deep. It was surrounded and sheltered by vertical walls and large boulders. Beside it lay a flat, smooth space about the size and shape of my bedroom, perfect for our tent and its lean-to. I quickly removed my pack and took out my share of the tent. I looked up and gasped. The entire space was suddenly bathed in the spectacular orange and pink light of an intensifying alpenglow. Over the years, I have stood many an evening in the Sierra, admiring that spell cast by the sunlight's last hurrah, the way it first coats the whole west-facing mountainside with bright color while the rest of the world goes gray. As the long, unseen sun sinks below the sea, the colorful glow shrinks, its bottom line creeping up the mountain canvas like an upside-down hourglass filled with an ever-shrinking volume of salmon-colored sand until only the tip of the tallest peak remains in colored light. Finally, the color is completely extinguished as the last grains of glowing sand fall upward into the sky. As amazing as I find the alpenglow phenomenon every time I witness it, that night's experience was singular. Our little camping room was bathed in an alpenglow spotlight. We were immersed in pink and orange. The pond reflected it, the room's vertical walls and boulders glowed as though illuminated from within. It was like being inside a magical snow globe, filled not with white snow, but with glowing photons of fiery light that swirled all around us. We stopped our work to watch the colors and shadows shift and change around us like colorful fluids spreading and mixing and flowing away. Alpenglow is always fleeting. After too short a time, we stood witness as the darkness chased the last of the vivid colors across the space to leave us behind in the dullness of the night's full shadow. I blinked my eyes. I didn't even know that was a thing you could experience, I said. We stood in near complete darkness, punctuating the silence with words that only served to expose our tongue-tied awe. There really are no words in English to describe the experience clearly. I wonder if the Tibetans or the Nepalese, who live high in the Himalayas, have words in their languages to describe what we saw and felt that night. Thank you all.